Hey, how's everybody doing today? This is Mark Brody, and I'm back here on another episode of Coffee Talk with Brohawk. And I am uh honored, humbled, excited to have as a guest on this episode Dan Smitley. Dan, thank you very much for being a guest
No.
on this episode. Those of you, and I can't imagine too many people don't know who you are because
Yeah,
you're out there.
I appreciate
But can
that.
you tell in a good way, not in a
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
way?
yeah.
Can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and
Absolutely.
what are you up to these days?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a privilege to be on the show. I appreciate you bringing me on. So honestly, the honor is all mine. But yeah, Dan Smitley. I am the strategy and optimization czar at CallDesign. Yeah, I was right.
Nice.
Who can be a director? Who can be a VP? Anybody who can be a czar. It's a funny title, right? But it really what allows me to do as a strategy and optimization focused guy. I'm focusing on that internally and externally, right? So trying to help
Hmm.
my internal organization think about where are we going with our people strategy, marketing strategy, new offers, helping us get efficient, but then also being able to take that to our customers, helping them think through where are they going, how are they wanting to use their WFM teams. So that's my current role. I'm able to do that well because for the past 20 years, I have been a practitioner in the WFM contact center space. So contact centers going back to college days as a dial-up internet tech support nerd, right? That was me back in the day.
I
Did
love it.
a little kind of supervising manager, right? A lot of people growing up in the ranks did a little bit at a kind of a large telemarketer, and then transitioned into some WFM roles and
Mhm.
have been in WFM for about well, that'd be well, my daughter just turned 16. So about 16 years now I've been in WFM space, leading WFM teams. Love chatting about WFM, people, culture, engagement, schedule flexibility. So those are my lenses. That's what I love thinking about. And yeah, that's kind of the quick synopsis of what I'm doing.
I love that. And the thing that as you were going through that, the one thing that really stuck out for me, um, and I just got back from Boston, so I'm going to talk with my hands a lot today.
Me too.
Um,
Me too. That's part of the reason the camera's here and not like a,
they-
a lot of hand gestures. Get it?
and so the one thing that stuck out to me is you work on the same stuff internally
Yeah.
that you work with your clients on externally.
Yeah.
And so it beckons the phrase or the saying, you know um fix your own house before
Yeah.
you go fixing other people's
Right.
houses.
Right. Yeah.
um, you
Physician
know
heal thyself. Yep.
exactly. I
Yeah.
always I like to use the airplane analogy.
Yep.
Take care of your own mask first before you go ahead and help others.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's interesting, right? So again, coming from a practitioner standpoint, call design, sales, consults and trains around WFM, WEM, right?
Yeah.
QM, PM, a lot of WFM.
Mhm.
What I found coming into our organization, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know if any of them will listen, but I think they know I feel this way. It's interesting, right? You can sell and service WFM, but that doesn't mean you think like a WFM practitioner, right?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's that mindset about optimizing, maximizing. What are we doing? Where are we going? What's the best
Yes.
time? What's the best way? What is the most efficient kind of process here while keeping everyone engaged, keeping everyone on board, moving us along? That's what I've been doing. And so, like, internally, I'm trying to help us think about that. Guys, we need to have a strategy. We need to have a focus. We need to make sure that we're doing it as optimized as possible.
Mhm.
And then still having those conversations with our customers. Where are you going? What are you wanting to do? Okay, here's how I think you can do that either from a political standpoint, like go build these relationships with that person,
Mhm.
or a change management. You need to be thinking about your agents and how they're going to be impacted by this. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun because I get to have these conversations that I've been having for 20 years and just leveraging them in a different way, coaching, consulting, and then almost internal coaching and consulting as well. It's been honestly a lot of fun.
That when people think about WFM
Yeah.
professionals, and not disparaging any WFM
You better be
professional
careful what you
out
say
there,
now.
but the them's fighting words.
Exactly. I'm waiting for it.
A lot of folks, especially the less experienced
Yeah.
WFM professionals, are all focused about butts and seats. Where are
Yeah.
people at?
Yep.
Kicking out. RTA, whatever it is, that's all about the numbers. And I
Yeah.
love the fact that you bring out the human component
Oh,
to it,
absolutely.
um, because behind the numbers are the people that are impacted by you know choices
Right.
and decisions that are made. So I love the fact that you have a focus on
For sure.
that agent.
For sure, right? So, and then you positioned as like new up and coming WFM, but I see it in a lot of old school legacy WFM as well, right? Like think back WFM 20, 30 years ago. Really what we're realizing is, oh, we can see how much work someone needs to do, how long it takes them to do it. We can optimize this. We can do this. We can do more with less. And that's been WFM for past 20, 30 years. And I would say probably over the past five, or at least in my experience in the past 5 years, there's been a shift. And I've been trying to help push the shift along of it's not just optimizing people. It,
Yep.
it is about an appropriate balance of employee experience, customer experience, and business outcome, right? So I have seen environments, let's call them startups, because I think they're the easy target, that are just so
Hmm.
employee centric that there's no rules. Employees come
Yeah.
and go when they want. It's just anarchy. You're losing, you're bleeding money, and eventually the startup money stops, and you're like, wait, we got to figure out how to kind of control this environment. It's almost cat's out of the bag, right? The employee experience has run the organization for so long. Customers suffered, business suffered. I've also seen
Yeah.
the other side to where the business outcomes are so important. We don't care about service levels. We don't care about employee experience. You answer as many calls as possible, as fast as possible, as cheap as possible. Go, right? And that's that business outcome that just burns people out, has that high attrition rate. And it's just, we've seen that. We've seen that in
Yes.
environments. I think WFM, when done best, is thinking about what are the service levels and abandon rates I need to provide my customers so that they keep returning, that they have great experiences. What are the schedules that I can provide my employees so they have that work-life balance? How can I provide them not just schedule flexibility, but autonomy and control? How can they come and go, but we're maintaining service levels and we're doing it cheap so that the business gets their outcome? If one of those things gets out of balance, things start going whack. But I think WFM, when done well, holds all three of these in tandem with tension, saying we have to care about our employees, our customers, and we've got to return shareholder profits. None
Yes.
of them are the best. None of them are the worst. They're all part of the environment. And it's remembering that it's humans behind all of those pieces. It's jobs, it's customer experience, and it's employees engagement. That's a
You
lot. I'm
know,
sorry. I'm getting on my soapbox.
no, no,
I'm
no.
trying to put my soapbox off to the side for a little bit.
No, bring it on, bring it on. Because the thing that was kind of that was starting to resonate with me there is,
Yeah.
I always view the contact center as kind of like hub and spoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the organization, everything, all data, all information
Yep.
that the organization needs has to
Yep.
is coming through the contact center.
For sure.
At the nucleus of that, though, is the WFM piece, in my opinion.
I think so.
Because you're
Hmm.
seeing, hey, we're having longer call handle
Right.
times.
Yep.
Is there a problem with the knowledge base? And you can kind of point to those a lot quicker,
Hmm.
because you're watching the data, in some cases minute to minute, but definitely hour to hour, day to
Yep.
day.
Yep.
Um, and I think WFM in some organizations is kind of um, too detached from operations,
Mm.
um, and
Hmm.
the real value that WFM can bring into an operation isn't always optimized. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think too easy, the interaction that WFM has with the operations team is the big brother, right? We come
Hmm.
in heavy and we say, stop what you're doing, do this because we know what's best. We have our numbers and we know what you need. And it's a one-way conversation. And
Hmm.
it's unfortunate when WFM takes that position because you're right, we are central to so many different teams. And what I also think about, right, is it's one way towards operations. It's also one way from HR and IT and finance. We just sit as a central place of like IT says this is what we're doing, HR says these are the new policies, right?
Hmm.
Finance says go save us some money, and we just receive it. I
Yep.
love when workforce management comes a two-way conversation. We're pushing
Mhm.
back on HR saying the agents are going to be frustrated with this. We need to kind of think this through a little bit better, right?
Yep.
Finance, we can get you some money, but we think we also need to balance out the employee experience that HR is focusing on, and
Hmm.
operations. We're not just coming to you because we know what's best. You know your agents really well. We see their numbers, you see their faces. Help
Yes.
us understand what's going on, right? Like we don't always know what's best. We know the numbers, we don't know the context. And so it's when we have these two-way conversations, not just with the operations, but with IT and finance and HR, that's when WFM stops becoming this kind of reactive, nerds in the corner. You slip them a couple pieces of pizza underneath the door and they push out spreadsheets, right? Like when we can move past that into strategic partners, having
Yes.
two-way conversations. God, like that is what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's what gets me excited about like we can get there. I've seen it. And
Yep.
that's why I love trying to help WFM teams think about what does that look like for them? How can they start having these two-way conversations with more teams in their organization?
Yeah, the organizations that I've seen really, kicking on all cylinders are the ones that bring WFM to the table, even
Mm-hmm.
when there's nothing to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Because the
Mm-hmm.
lens that WFM will see
Yep.
initiatives through
Yep.
are ones that people aren't focused on in the very beginning of an
Exactly.
initiative.
Exactly.
Um, you
Yeah.
know, um, One of the other things that we
Mm.
talked about. I mean, you and I met in
Yep.
person finally about a
Yeah.
month and
Yeah.
a half ago at a
Yeah.
conference. Um, and after the conference, we've had some other conversations, and one of the conversations that we had
Mm.
um, was, yeah, everybody's focused on AI, ChatGPT, digital agent engagement, digital agents, and everything like that,
Yep.
which is
It's exciting.
important.
Yeah.
It's a new shiny purple squirrel or whatever that everybody's focused on. And it's like, all right, cool. Yeah,
Yep.
this has some ability to do some things. But we've had some other conversations about the
Yeah.
importance of being able to stay human centric. So
Oh,
what
for
does
sure.
human centric mean to you?
Yeah, so human centric for me, it means so much in different conversations, right? We already talked a little bit about the importance of this balanced WFM approach, and I kind of said behind that all is because it's people. It is people on the other side of the phone, the chat, the SMS, and remembering that these are people with families and friends, right? Looking at the employee experience not as how happy are you at work or how quickly would you refer us to an family or friend in the surveys. Those are important pieces, but again, remembering Mark has a family. How can I help? I also know that Mark just had traveling, and so maybe he's going to come in a little late today, and is that okay? And can I work with Mark to move him down the schedule a little bit, because I know
Yeah.
it's talking about Mark, not employee 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Yes.
And thinking about business profitability not as the top line leadership making a buck and just cranking all of us to grinding dust, but to remember that for us to maintain jobs, for us to be able to get our bonuses, to be able to have bigger teams, to be able to take care of the people we work next to
Hmm.
with higher rate, we have to have the profitability there. And it's
Yep.
about business outcomes to benefit the people on our teams in the organization, right? So when we think about human centric, for me, I'm thinking about the remembering that we're all there. When we add in AI into the conversation, I love the automation and I love the capabilities that AI is bringing. Right, I get excited about my own personal AI assistant. I'm really excited about not having to write emails and just telling someone, "Hey, reply back to Mark Brody that I'm running late." And it's going to be right. It's not just, "Hey, Mark,
Yes.
I'm running late," but it's got more personal, more tone, more of a
Yeah.
the Dan feel in the email. I'm looking forward to my own assistant, and I see the value of AI in the call center space. And I keep coming back to we have to make sure that we're maintaining these human relationships. Something I've been thinking about recently is I can see where AI and automation from an employee to leader perspective is going to provide automated messages. "Hey, Mark, wanted to check in. How's the family? I remembered that your kid had this thing going on yesterday. I didn't send it. My automated robot sent it to you," right? But it makes
Hmm.
it look like I remembered. It makes it right.
Yep.
I think that's helpful, and I love automation. But I think you, as the employer, are going to sniff that out, and you're going to be like, "That's inauthentic." He doesn't really care. He's not really following up. That's just a button that he's pushed that message to me. So even as we lean into automation, I think we have to be cautious about where are we starting to break down some of those relationships? Where are we breaking down the human to human interaction? Because that's what human centric means to me, is to lean into the uniquely valuable pieces that make us human: empathy, kindness, curiosity, leaning into relationship building, and allowing automation to do all the other stuff. Button pushing, not important, right? Making sure that these numbers add up together, or that I have forecasted appropriately, not important. But what is important is you and I maintaining our relationship, and that you trust me as your leader. That's huge. And so for human centric means remembering there's people, remembering the importance of relationships, and continually leaning into that, even as AI and automation make our lives easier. Don't let it take away our ability to connect with each other.
I love that. And I think, I on my travels this week,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to interact with some AI agents, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't done real good.
Yeah.
And the parts that you think should be easy, it's
Right.
like, oh, we got to transfer you now to a live
Yep.
person,
Yep.
and it's like, well, why wasn't there just a live person available
Yep.
when
Yep.
you know and I understand the whole queuing thing and whatnot. Hey, let's see if we can get the low hanging fruit out of here. I get it. But
I'm gonna. I mean, I understand, but
go for it.
and
Go for it.
you didn't say the word deflection, but it sounds like deflection strategy. And I'm not putting that on you, right? Like
Yeah.
but here's my. I'm going to throw this out to anyone else that's listening, that's thinking about AI and taking care of the low hanging fruit. I think too often we're saying, how can we cut some of our interactions? How can we deflect some of these? How can we just take care of it with the bots? And again, you're looking at that as a way of maximizing productivity, efficiency, and profitability. That's fine. I'm not demonizing making a dollar. What I'm saying is, you forgot about the human connection there. Instead of saying, how can we deflect these interactions? You need to be asking, how can I make the life of my customer easier? That might mean automated responses. That's probably
Yeah.
going to include bots. It's probably going to include,
Hmm.
SMS. It's going to include FAQ. It's going to include these environments that allow them to self-service. But
Yeah.
you have to make sure that you're quickly moving towards, what do they need, where are their frustrations, and where should we have a person involved in that chat, right? And not trying to transfer, but insert, not asking the customer to make that extra step, but we make that extra step. Hey, this chat seems to be going a little long, you seem to be frustrated, we're calling you, right?
Yes.
We're jumping in, we're calling you, we're not asking you to take another step. We're sorry that this went so long. That's our bad. How can I
Yep.
help? And I love that human centric approach, right? Like
Yep.
deflection, I get it. We all need to increase our profitability to some extent, but we cannot forget about the frustrations and the human piece of that. And what can we do to maintain those connections?
Yeah. I kind of see this on another level as well.
Yeah.
It's as our as our population of consumers ages more,
Sure.
um, they people are realizing more and more, I think, yeah, technology is cool and everything, but sometimes I just want to talk to somebody, you know.
Yep.
And so while being human centric
Yeah.
within the organization is important, you
Yes.
also as an organization need to understand who your consumers are
Exactly.
and what they value,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly. Exactly. It's again, wherever we see numbers, trying to remember those are people, right?
Yes.
It's rare that the number is not connected to a person to some
Hmm.
extent, and
Yeah.
just trying to dig past the numbers. I love myself some numbers. Don't get me wrong. I
Hmm.
love a pretty dashboard that's interactive. It's wonderful. Good forecasting. Give it to me. But these are people,
Yeah.
and stopping and remembering that, whether it's customers or employees, or again the executives that have shareholders that they have to deliver to, they're
Yep.
people with families and interests as well.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So, Dan,
Mhm.
you've had a really good career, a
I
really
think so.
great career. I
I
mean,
think so.
so far, you got many more years ahead of you.
I hope so.
Unless you decide to,
I mean, if
win
I win the
Powerball.
lottery, I can't promise anything. I might be out.
Hey, I always tell people, from a succession planning perspective,
Yeah.
what if Dan wins the lottery? What are you going to do then? Because he
Right.
ain't coming back, you know.
Exactly. And if
Um,
he does, we might not want him because he might just be burning bridges and just saying peace out. Like
exactly, exactly. Yeah. How nicely are you treating Dan? Because you
exactly.
want him to
Yeah.
stay on a little bit longer.
Right.
He may take
Exactly.
some PTO, some extra PTO time unpaid, but
Right.
um, so you know, as you progress through your career,
Yeah.
um, I'm interested in learning about your thoughts on this. So
Mm.
at this stage in my career, I wish I could go back in time and
Mm.
tell my younger self X.
Yeah.
And with that advice, how would that have helped you navigate your career differently,
Yeah.
or would it have been the same?
It would have been the same, but it would have been faster.
Okay.
It would have been the same, but it would have been faster. So the advice I would have given myself is to continually lean into asking questions and don't get uncomfortable because other people are uncomfortable. What I mean by that, right? Like I can remember points in my career. I'm a stupid curious person, right? I love asking questions. I love but why, but how, but when. I
Yep.
love kind of figuring those things out. And I remember
It's
in
our
my
inner
past,
3-year-old.
what's that? Yeah, right.
It's our inner 3-year-old.
I'm that 3-year-old in your in your company, just a little bit older. And I remember in environments where people were not okay with that, right? They were tired of me asking questions. They were tired of me questioning the norms. They were tired of me questioning the business as usual. This is what you're doing. Just go do it. Stop asking so many questions. We've made the decision that the conversation is over. You just need
Hmm.
to now execute. And I can appreciate, I try to provide some grace. I don't want to demonize them either, right? They had their marching orders lightly. But for me, that made me question, okay, wait, maybe this is not an attribute. Maybe this is a problem. Maybe this is something I need to curtail. Maybe this is something I need to control, right? To stop
Hmm.
being so curious. It's not helping in these environments. Pull it back. That's wrong, man. Like I would have gotten to where I am now because I've leaned into it. I just think I could have gotten here faster if I had the knowledge that that is my value add. That is what
Hmm.
I do. I add values in environments by asking great questions, and they can't appreciate that. That means I need to go find another environment that does. That's not my problem. That's their problem. And go find an
Yes.
environment that's going to appreciate and say, holy cow, we never would have thought about that. Thank you so much for asking that question. I just needed to get to that environment a little bit faster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you probably experienced this during your career. I know I did,
Yeah.
where you'd be in a meeting and you'd be asking a lot of questions. You were the loudest voice in the room, not
Yeah.
because you wanted to hear yourself talk, but you were genuinely curious. And
Mm-hmm.
there were folks at like 2, 3 levels above you that were like, "Shut up! We don't need to know that. That's too much into the weeds."
Right. Yep.
And
Yep.
and then later on, as you were going through a process on a particular project, they're like, yeah, didn't you ask that? Or they'll ask the same question that you asked like a month
Right.
before, you know. Um,
Absolutely. I have seen my questions provide value time and time again. And at least for me and how my career has gone and the values that I add into organizations, that allows me to think a little bit more holistically, right? I
yeah.
was talking before about I see WFM as a central team, and it's probably because I think very holistically. So
Hmm.
I naturally see the value of WFM as somebody that's sitting there thinking about X, Y, and Z, and then
Yeah.
starting to take action, thinking about how we can and take those next steps. So yeah, like I just I my curiosity has provided so much insight into not just my environment, but peers' environments and being able to say, oh, that doesn't impact me, but that person over there, you better go talk to them. Like they're gonna be upset. And it's
Yes.
because I asked the questions because that person wasn't in the room. I was, and I was able to help them out by saying, that's not gonna go over well in their environment. Go chat with them.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Um, so what do you see as an experienced leader also?
Yeah.
What are you seeing as the biggest challenges that leaders today are facing
Mm,
versus like when you first started off in your career?
yeah.
You know, my career started many more years before that, but when you first started off versus today, as a leader, what challenges do you see are different?
Yeah, the bar has been raised, and I love the younger millennials. I'm a geriatric millennial, so I'm barely inside of the millennials, but the younger ones and the Gen Zs, I love how they have raised the bar, right? For some reason the movie Big pops into my head, right, with Tom
Mm,
Hanks and like the guy. It's a preteen teenager that becomes like an adult overnight and has this great job, and he's playing with toys.
yep.
And I don't want to say that the leaders now have to have that child playfulness, but they
Mm,
couldn't be the other guys. They couldn't be that quintessential suit wearing 80s. Oh, it's about the numbers and the right. That's dead. And that's what I love that younger generations have pushed. They've raised the bar. And so the challenges, I think, are that legacy leaders that still are comfortable saying it's about the number. It's a job. If you don't care about making money, go to a nonprofit,
yep.
right? Like it's more complicated than that, right?
Yeah.
The younger generations want a purpose to get behind. They want something to feel invested in. So leaders now are challenged with, how do I not just drive profitability, but how do I engage employees? It's not just about how to make smart decisions. It's about how do I emotionally connect and have emotional intelligence, right? So I love the challenge of leadership now because it's more than just IQ. It's including that EQ element. And you can't be a one-trick pony in leadership anymore. You have got to think more holistically about people in your business and your customers.
Yep.
I love that the young generations have pushed leaders to require this, because they're not going to work for people that don't give them something to believe in and that they can't connect to, whether it's a cause or an actual leader.
Yep. I love that. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and too many organizations forget the why
Mm-hmm.
um, people are ascending into leadership. Um,
Mm,
and you know that's so critical
yeah.
that why does somebody choose to be a supervisor or manager or
Mm-hmm.
whatever? Why do they choose to stay with our organization and ascend within our organization?
Sure.
So, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
It's easy for them to think it's just money, but oftentimes it's a lot more than that. It's not just about that
yeah,
career bump. It's not just the salary bump. It's going to be a little bit more, and trying to figure out why and making sure that we have that available for them.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. So, they're recently, I mean, over the last 6 months, a year,
Mm-hmm.
people have gone through some career changes, layoffs,
Yep.
and things like and such.
Yeah.
Um, what would be your top recommendations
Mm-hmm.
for somebody that may be at like an inflection point in their career?
Yeah.
Um, to kind of find their next spot or next destination, or maybe it's just a temporary stopping point. What
Yeah.
are some of your recommendations?
The recommendation I have is that you have got to not just know your value, but be able to articulate your value, right?
Yes.
That I have had too many conversations with people that are trying to join my team or that are trying to join a different team, and they say, yeah, I'm a team oriented, goals oriented person who is a self starter and self learner.
Yeah.
You and everyone else, right? Like, how do you articulate that value? How do you kind of dig in past that to be able to say, I'm not just team oriented. I work well in an environment where people are casting vision and dreaming big. Dig a little
Yep.
deeper. Why do you work in that environment well? I work well in that environment because I love helping execute other people's vision. So now, instead of saying, I work well in a team, you say, I work well in a team with other dreamers and vision casters because I'm an executor. I love pushing forward other people's visions. And so put me in a role that allows me to support a visionary. That is
Yeah.
how you know your value. That's how you articulate your value. So if you're in this inflection point of trying to figure out where to go next, stop, do the deep work of figuring out why you think you're that way, and dig one level past that. That's your selling point. That's how you know what you should be doing and who you should be working with, because you're able to finally articulate, I'm unique and different, and here's what it is.
Yes. Don't list out the tasks that you
Oh my
do.
God. Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I learned that a few years back,
Mm-hmm.
where I was having a conversation at one of our ACCA events,
Mm-hmm.
and um, the person who's the keynote, I was just kind of sitting there chatting with him, and talking about, hey, I may be looking for some stuff. He's like, well, what value would you bring to an organization?
Mm.
And I'm
Mm,
like, oh, good question. I'm like, well, I've done this and I've done this. He's like,
yep.
no, no,
Yep.
those aren't, that's not value.
Yep.
And so, you know,
Exactly.
your recommendation of really understanding the value that you bring to an organization,
Yep.
and it doesn't have to be numerical based. It doesn't
Right.
have to be, dollars and cents related or anything like that. I love the fact that like in your example, I help leaders execute on their vision,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then this is how I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And then and you use that right to not just articulate it, because I think it's easy to say, oh, I've done this for so long, and this is my role, this is my
Mhm.
career path, and I'm going to
Yep.
interview for roles in there. Okay, cool. So you are an executor, you love working with visionaries.
Mhm.
Go find a role that does that. And maybe that means it's your old roles that you've done in the past, but maybe you need to
Yep.
pivot towards something else that really allows you to lean into that. So
Mhm.
that's where I love being able to say you have to articulate it, but you have to know it, and then try to find a way to support it, whether it's through development, whether it's through a career move, whether it's through leadership, whatever that is. Lean into your strengths.
I remember having conversations, you know, back 10, 15 years ago
Mm-hmm.
with folks that, we saw, as an organization, we knew that layoffs were going to be coming down the
Sure.
pipeline, and just having conversations, not just, with my peers, but, with people that higher levels that I work with. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been here, I've been at this organization for 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I know.
Mm.
Uh, and it's like, well, you're looking at it incorrectly. You know, you're at a X level. How
Right.
did you get there?
Yep.
What makes you successful?
Yep.
You're a people person. You understand regulations. You
Yep.
understand this. That's the value that you bring in, and those are the types of roles that you really want to be
Exactly.
putting yourself into. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
so,
Very
so
cool.
any you as we talked about before, you and I met at a conference,
Yeah.
in person finally,
Yeah.
uh, and we got connected together through our network, through our
Yep.
mutual network,
Yep.
um, you know, um, and so any tips for how aspiring leaders,
Mm.
or people that are just looking for whatever that next new thing is for them, or are
Hmm.
just curious, um, can create some professional development opportunities
Yep.
for themselves, and it could be through networking or
Yep.
through other means.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think networking is. I have said to plenty of people in the past, like WFM guy, right? So the SWPP conference, Society of Workforce Planning Professionals. That's kind of our thing. That's the WFM conference,
Yeah.
and I've said with plenty of times, like network with people, because the job you're at now is likely not what you're going to retire with. So
Hmm.
these people are probably either going to be interviewing you or your peers. What was funny is I was chatting with someone. I was a vendor there, chatting with some people, and my coworker's like, "Hey, how do you know them?" I'm like, "Well, I was interviewing for with that guy. Like he was interviewing me, and that guy took my job. Like he got it, and it was we're
Yes.
cordial, right? Like we're still in great, but."
Yeah.
The reality is that those environments are going to be where you're going to network and you're going to kind of learn what's going on, who's out there, and how to get to the next role. Around professional development, some of the tips that I do personally, I start my days really early, and 4 out of 5 days, that starting is probably going to be on my phone playing video games. But while
Yes.
I'm doing that, I'm listening to LinkedIn Learning. I'm listening to a podcast. And so it's this slow ease in. I'm sipping on my coffee. I'm playing my dumb little games or whatever, but I'm
uh,
learning about entrepreneurship. I'm learning about strategic planning. I'm learning about go to market strategies, right? I'm listening, I'm consuming while playing these dumb little games. So it's one of those, how can you find ways of injecting learning into your environment? Another great example is when I go for runs. I hate running, but I run because it's good for my health. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to webinars. I will sign up for webinars and then
uh,
take it on the road with me. So I'm just listening to their presentation. I'm listening to Audible books. That is my learning time. So um,
awesome.
thinking about professional development, just how can you inject learning into your natural day-to-day kind of environments? And it
Yep.
might be while you're drinking your coffee, playing on your phone.
I love it. I love it. Hey, Dan, we've gotten to the point of our conversation. I
Love it.
call it the speed round.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Ready. Let's do
All
it.
right. Okay. So just learned that you're a runner, but
Yeah.
what fact about Dan would people be most interested to learn about you?
Yeah, so I remind my teenage daughters I used to be cool. So something that you might not expect from me is that back in the day, I had a blue mohawk, double lipped pierced, and was a screamer in a hardcore band. So like I was
Nice.
that scene kid back in the early 2000s.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. And unless you said it, I would not. I could kind of see the mohawk, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
but oh man, that is awesome. That is
Right.
awesome. Man, and it was a blue mohawk.
So blue mohawk went to complete like shaved all the way off and then didn't
Uh,
touch it for like 18 months. So it got like long, like
uh,
shoulder length. So I went from that to yeah. I used to be cool. That's what I try to let my kids
there
remember.
you go. Yeah, my older boys would always tell me you've never been cool, and I'm like, all right, whatever.
I've been boring. I've always been boring, but I
Yeah.
used to be cool. Like
Oh my gosh. So after understanding that you used to uh be into the scream
yeah,
music.
yeah,
Um, you know, after a stressful day, what's your go-to
right.
tactic for winding down?
Yeah, so almost the exact opposite for me, right? So I already mentioned I'm playing my games on my phone. One of my like relax release, and I'm probably in about another hour going to be jumping off and Xbox, right? So playing Overwatch, playing Hogwarts Legacy, love me some Harry Potter, or I'm a big bath guy. I love a good bath. Like, give me my
Nice.
phone, give me a book, and just like if I can, this is a sign of a good bath. If I
Uh,
don't have to turn the cold water on at all, if it's just pure hot, sweat it all out, get rid of all of that stress,
yes.
that's how I relax.
I love it. That reminds me of um I'm probably going to tell a little bit too much about myself, but
Apparently, I think I am
um,
too. But
each night, we watch Friends as we're
yeah,
falling asleep.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
reminds me of the episode where Chandler realizes that baths are kind of cool, you know?
They are. It's true.
Yeah.
I understand not everyone loves them, but they're for me, and it's a great way to relax after a stressful day.
Awesome, awesome. Uh, Dan, this has been a great conversation. I
Yeah,
really appreciate
appreciate that.
the time that you've spent with me today, and just all any and all of our conversations that we've had.
Awesome.
Um,
Thanks.
so, if someone wants to pick your brain a little bit
Oh
more
yeah.
about maybe the work that Call Design does, or your experiences with WFM
Mm-hmm.
and your network within the WFM community. Um,
Absolutely.
what conferences you may be attending so they can meet you in person,
Yeah,
or just generally just want to pick your brain,
I
because
love
they're
it.
like, hey, did you know this band or that band,
Right, exactly.
um you know how could they get in contact with you?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So I am pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not going to be there. Find me on LinkedIn, Dan Smitley. It's linkedin.com/in/Dan Smitley. Super simple to find me. It's going to be the green picture where I'm running in it. So
Nice.
you'll know. So find me on there. Call Design, you can find us on calldesign.na.com. So calldesignnorthamerica.com. We have blogs that are updated weekly. I do a lot of that writing. So some of my thought leadership is going to be there. I post Monday through Friday on LinkedIn. So every single day during the work week, I will have something, a link, an article, a webinar, stupid joke that was actually created by chat gpt that makes me look funny. I will post that as well. That's happened multiple times. And as far as like events go, I will be at the ICMI in October as a speaker there. I think I'm in ACA. I think we're probably going to be able to make a connection, not a sponsor but
Yes.
yet, but everyone that's on here probably will be joining us in Austin in September 14th, 15th,
September 14th, the
14th. I
Austin
was
Contact
there.
Center Alliance. Yep.
I was
Man,
there. So you'll be able to probably find me there, ICMI, and like I said, SWPP. I'm there every year.
excellent. And Dan, when you come down to Austin,
Yeah.
we'll get some barbecue. How's that sound?
I'm a Carolina boy now. I'm outside of Charleston, so so if it's not mustard or vinegar, I might have an opinion, but let's try it. I'm game.
Hey, tell you what, when I head out to South Carolina, maybe we'll get some Carolina barbecue, and
Yep,
I'll treat you to some Texas barbecue when
it's
you're out
on.
here.
I
How's
love
that?
it. Let's do that.
Excellent, excellent. Dan, thank you very much.
All right.
If you're watching this episode, you like the episode, hit the like button,
Yep.
share it with your friends. If you didn't like the episode, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Somebody in your network will enjoy or
Yep.
be able to grab something from this conversation. I think very insightful, Dan. I know that
Thanks,
you're a
man.
thought leader, a thought
Appreciate
leader.
that.
I see a lot of your posts out there, and it's great content. So
Thanks.
thank you for being open with the community, the contact center community, about some of your experiences and some of your thought leadership. So,
Thanks.
with that, thank you very much for being a guest
Thank you,
on
sir.
Coffee Talk with Brohawk.
Thanks, man.
Have a great day now.
You too. Thanks.